What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here. I got my final thoughts for week 10 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. We're going game by game, breaking it all down, talking cash games, tournaments, stacks, and at the end, I'll run the optimizer to see who is populating the most as of right now. So if that all sounds fun and dangerous to you, do me a favor, leave a like down below. Scotch if brand new. Let's dive right into it. And really quick, if you like what we see on the screen today, it is all available at my website, cpendfs.com. You can find a link down in the description or the pinned comment, but tons of content on there. And the first week is free if you do want to come in and test drive all the tools that I have. But for NFL, flagship showdowns, and the classic main slate, got projections, everything you can export to CSV. Everything is nice, sortable, and easy to use. We have all detailed projections for how we actually have the players completely set it out. Quarterback, running back, tight end, you guys get the idea. We have player pools, the data pages, the advanced stats that you can make your own custom charts with as well, given the database that we have. So tons of stuff on there if you want to come in and check it out. I would love to have you. We have sortable cheat sheets, which have about like 50 separate things, the top leverage plays or the highest rated DraftKings quarterbacks this week. There's just tons of stuff over there. But anyway, now that I sold myself out, let's go game by game and break this down. Now, I do want to mention, I'm not going to go in-depth detail on every single team, every single player. It's boring. You don't want to listen to it. We're going to keep this short, sweet, and simple and talk about the things that I think matter for this slate for the most part. In the first game we'll talk about, I wouldn't say it's an elite game. There is one player in this entire game that I do like, and it's going to be Rico Dowdle. I think we all know that. But 38.5 point over under in this one. We're going to be in Carolina, so not in the dome. 5.5 point spread in the Panthers' favor, 22.5 implied team total. I don't think there's really any reason to like anybody on New Orleans personally. It's a 10-game slate. I would go elsewhere. But in Carolina, Rico Dowdle, he's actually one of my favorite running backs on the slate. This is a good spot versus New Orleans. He's a home favorite. So there's a pretty decent chance he continues his success that we have seen from him this year. Got a little bit banged up this week. Did not practice on Wednesday, but that was more precautionary than anything. Did return, and he is going to be completely fine. The only injury news that we really have to worry about is Ted McMillan picking up a hammy injury on Friday, and that is never a good sign at all. Myself, I didn't really find myself landing on Tet in any preliminary builds or just kind of doing a scan of the entire slate with how my optimal rates or anything like that happened to pop up, and Ted McMillan just really wasn't anywhere for me. So there is a decent chance he could end up missing. If that is the case, it's a bump to everybody below him, but I still don't really think it'll be enough to where I have a ton of interest. I mean, one of these guys is going to get a handful of targets. That's great, but I do think there's much better spots on this slate. Rico Dowdle, fine in cash games. I personally think a Chan might be the top option at running back, but Rico Dowdle as an RB2 is excellent, and I would say he's definitely cash game viable. Moving on to the Giants on the road in Chicago. This is one of the games that I do like quite a bit. Now, you'd have to correct me if I am wrong, but I feel like this total was slightly higher earlier in the week. I might be wrong, but the Bears are at 26.5 for their implied team total. They're 4.5 point favorites, and hard not to like the options in this game. Now, similar to the Panthers, we do have one guy we have to worry about with injury news. That is going to be DeAndre Swift. Ended up not practicing on Friday. We know he missed the game last week, and Manungai was the absolute bee's knees. He crushed it last week, I think around 200 total yards, and it was an excellent outing, and he's still pretty cheap. So if DeAndre Swift is out, and I do have to adjust this, it is giving a little bit too much of an edge to DeAndre Swift with his current projection. I do think it'll definitely be a lot more split, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of fine-tuning on that. But Manungai, if he is the RB1 in this offense with no DeAndre Swift, he is going to be the top play on the slate. The Giants have not been good versus running backs this year, so I will happily attack them, even though Manungai's price came up a little bit. If he was a starting running back, probably needs to be close to 7K with the role that he would have. So I do think he would be probably the top option at running back this week if that's the case. Either way, Caleb Williams stacks with Rome Odunze, who I know goose last week, but don't let that hurt your feelings. You got to remove emotion from DFS as we go week to week. DJ Moore would be fine at $5,500. Zacchaeus, if you are in a pinch, Loveland, of course, would be a tournament option. You know, he had that huge touchdown near the end of the game last week. But for me personally, my stuff likes throwing me on the Giants side of things with Jackson Dart, which Jackson Dart is not going to be unowned by any means this week. And I just think with his rushing ability, DraftKings has been underpricing him. Now, he was free last week at $5,100. Ended up doing well. There's a couple of quarterbacks that went off, like Caleb Williams, of course, so it kind of overshadowed that a little bit, but Jackson Dart was still fine. But that rushing ability, sub 6K, great spot here versus Chicago in a game that they should be trailing. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means, but they're definitely going to need him to try to keep them in this game. Very easy to stack with. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think one of the better wide receiver plays at $5,300. Just kind of a PPR scam with how many targets and receptions he gets on easy targets, or easy, I should say, like easy routes, easy concepts for him. Darius Slayton can be more of a home run hitter. Bo Collins is going to be out, kind of a mess after that. But for me personally, it's Wan'Dale Robinson, it's Theo Johnson, and Slayton if I'm feeling a little frisky. And yeah, like Jackson Dart, if I am playing cash games this week and you're trying to afford guys like Cena Chan, Puka Nacua, if you're trying to get studs, that, in my opinion, is pretty much the route I would go. Now we're moving on to Jacksonville on the road in Houston. Pretty ugly game here. Basically got to pick them 37.5 point over under. Just not really a game I'm looking to target. I think if I'm going to play anybody, it's probably going to be Parker Washington. No Brian Thomas. I mean, no Parker Washington was heavily involved last week, and he has been. So I do like the usage out of him at $4,700. And I want to tell you right now, Jacoby Myers, that is a fake FanDuel price. They do not have him on the slate. I'm not sure if they're going to add him or not, but I don't want to have a zero in the player pool here, so I threw him at 8K. That's what it is. $4,800 on DraftKings, though, with no BTJ. That could be viable, but honestly, I don't really see any interest in this game at all. I would play Parker Washington if I'm in a pinch, and that is basically it. Now, this game is a little bit more fun to talk about. 50.5 point over-under. Buffalo Bills come in on the road at Hard Rock with a 31.5 implied team total, 20.5 for the Miami Dolphins. And I do think there's some excellent fantasy options across the board here on both teams, actually. So if you can afford Josh Allen, he is the top QB on the slate this week. I know Lamar Jackson's on the slate. We're actually going to talk about that game next. And I do think he is also in a good spot, and that game should be a little bit closer. But Josh Allen, easy spot versus Miami. He's my number one projected QB. If you got the money for him, he's my top optimal rate quarterback. I like him. You get the rushing touchdown upside. He can do it all with his arm or his legs, does not matter. James Cook is also one of the best options at the running back position. Actually, him and Devontae Chan both project incredibly well for me. I know people typically do not like to play the same running backs, or two running backs from the same game. But a Chan is basically a wide receiver, so I don't really think it's that big of a deal. And honestly, the correlation still isn't that bad. Like, let's say you play James Cook, you can run it back with Devon Chan, which I know people don't typically like to do, but they're just going to pepper him with targets, and I don't think it's a big deal given the role that he has in his offense. So James Cook, excellent spot. I think Khalil Shakur is a pretty good wide receiver play. And honestly, I don't want to say it's my favorite cash game wide receiver, but at his price point and the lack of punts we have at the wide receiver position, he has kind of stuck in there in the optimals this week. And also Dalton Kincaid. If you're stacking with Josh Allen, Kincaid and Shakir are going to be my top options. And as of right now, Joshua Palmer is currently questionable. For Miami, where you talked about Achane, I'm not playing Tua personally, but him and Jalen Waddle are both going to be viable. Waddle just in the sense of, I assume the Dolphins are going to be trailing this game. Tua's got to throw the ball to somebody, and it's most likely going to be the running back and Jalen Waddle. And we kind of already hinted at this game, but we do have Baltimore on the road in the Dome in Minnesota. If you do not want to go with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson has very similar upside. You guys saw the projection, 22 compared to 22.8. And the upside, or the ownership, is not going to be as owned as Josh Allen. So he's a nice pivot option in tournaments. And similar to Allen, there's two stacking options that I do like. One being Zay Flowers, the wide receiver, at $1,500. I actually think he's one of the best wide receiver plays on the entire slate. We have seen this Minnesota secondary a little stiff early in the season. They have been a little bit leaky in recent weeks. And then Mark Andrews, all he does is catch touchdowns. If he does not catch a touchdown, you're probably not going to be super happy with the results. But he's also only $3,400, so you really don't need much to hit value. Bateman would be the low-owned home run hitter, but I would probably stick with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews personally. And I am not huge on Derrick Henry on this slate. And then for Minnesota, don't really like anybody here, honestly. Aaron Jones is questionable for this game if he happens to be out. It's obviously going to be an uptick for Jordan Mason, but this isn't really the spot that I'm in love with for Jordan Mason. Like at the price point, sure, he's going to be projected double digits if that happens to be the case. But honestly, I am fine with just a Baltimore stack here. I don't think you really need to force a run back, but if you do, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison are going to be the top options with them trying to keep pace. And then we have America's Game of the Week, Cleveland Browns on the road in New York. If you are playing anybody from this game, make sure it's the defenses. The Browns defense is my number one defense of the week. Justin Fields is a quarterback that can generate sacks and turnovers. I know he's mobile, but We have Myles Garrett back there, low total. They are slight favorites. I'm fine with the Jets defense too, but obviously they did lose Sauce Gardner and some other pieces. So I'm probably just going to stick with the Browns, and the prices are basically similar. Then we have the Panthers on the road in Tampa, 48.5 point over under. I do like this game. I feel like some of these other games are going to make this one a little bit overshadowed, but I would not forget about it in large field tournaments. I can't get to, I don't think anybody here in cash games. Tournaments, yeah, I don't really think there's a cash play in this game. I know Rashad White with no Bucky Irving at $6,400. The role is fine. It's not pretty, but he gets volume. But nobody else here really, it's not exciting. Ramondre Stevenson is out. Trayvon Henderson's okay, but we did see Jennings can get goal line carries, so it kind of zaps upside a little bit. But the quarterbacks are fun in this one. Drake May paired with Stephon Diggs. No Kayshon Boutte this week, so you have to play the game if do I want to get burned by fading Boutte and he catches a long touchdown. We also have Hunter Henry as an option. Chris Godwin's going to be out for the Buccaneers pass attack, so it kind of solidifies things even better. If you're playing Baker, it's Ibuka, and also Tez Johnson does get a nice little bump there at $4,500. I think that definitely puts him in place. A wide receiver with upside. I know he's small, but the speed is there. And Baker has shown that they can have some success paired together so far, even though it's a limited sample size. And I believe this is the third to last. We still have 3 more games. Arizona's on the road in Seattle. Seattle with a near 28-point implied team total. This is one of the highest ones of the week. Arizona 19.5. I guess the big news here is once again, Kyler Murray is going to be out. I know Call of Duty is releasing very shortly, so maybe that was predetermined by them. But Jacoby Brissett under center, which honestly I think that's a bump for everybody in the passing game. Good for Marvin Harrison. Great for Trey McBride. He finally catches touchdowns now that Kyler Murray is out. The only reason I'm playing anybody on Arizona is if it's a run back option with a Seattle stack that I have in place. JSN is going to be one of the top wide receivers every single week, but this week alone, I think he's second only behind Puka Nacua in projections. He is expensive, but he's about as rock solid as it gets. They did add Rashid Shaheed. Now, that's not going to impact JSN, I can imagine much, but he is another mouth to feed in the offense. But we know he's a home run hitter, but JSN's still going to get his. Cooper Kupp is currently questionable. We will see if he plays or not. If he does not, that's a bump for Cody White. We saw when everybody was out in the previous week, it was Cody White, Ricky White on the field. Jake Bobo is going to be out as well. So we'll kind of have to see. It's going to depend on what happens with Cooper Kupp. But I don't hate the idea of doing Sam Darnold, JSN, and run it back with, say, a Trey McBride. When that's not a priority for me. But points are definitely going to be scored from Seattle, at least according to Vegas this week. And then kind of an odd game here, 49.5 point over under. I like it. The problem is the premium pieces in this game are going to cost you an arm and a leg. Puka Nacua is 8,700. Of course, he projects as the wide receiver one at 24.1 points. And then Christian McCaffrey also projects as the RB1 in this slate. And he's also $9,000, 24.1 points, which actually they both project the exact same. Now, from what I have noticed in optimals, Puka Nacua ends up popping up a lot more than Christian McCaffrey. I think it's just the way the slate is, where there's maybe not that many great options at wide receiver. Just the way the roster construction lays out, it's usually like Achane, who's a little bit cheaper with a similar projection. Then you get Rico Dowdle in there, and then it kind of just feeds you Puka Nacua because it's not really feeding you Christian McCaffrey too often. I mean, the stack is fine here for Los Angeles. If you're playing Matthew Stafford, you have to go to Puka Nacua, you have to go to Devontae Adams. The run back option's a little bit iffy. Mac Jones will be starting. We just got that news. And Ricky Pearsall, once again, going to be out. I feel like he's missed more time with this knee injury than he did getting shot, but it is what it is. He will be out. So for me, it's kind of just liking Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey, which I know is the easiest thing to say in the world, but I'm going to side with Puka Nacua in my lineups. I really don't see myself getting to Christian McCaffrey too often. In my single entry build, I can pretty much tell you right now I will not get there, especially when he's $10,000 on FanDuel. I just don't really think that seems too necessary, especially given the fact that it's half PPR. Like on DraftKings, it definitely boosts, but on FanDuel, you're not getting quite the equity that you are getting on DK. And this will be our final game to talk about. It's not a bad one either. Detroit will be on the road in Washington, and this actually does have one of my more favorite running back plays, even though the projections don't like him as much, which I realize he does slow Dave Montgomery, and the touchdown upside kind of gets, not zapped, because we know Jahmyr Gibbs can score a lot of touchdowns, but it's just unfortunate that he does have to share some of the work. But you don't always have to completely agree with projections all the time, and Jahmyr Gibbs is someone I'm probably going to inflate myself, which I realize I'm the one who does these, but I don't like to do too many manual adjustments. So I'll probably boost him a little bit, but I think this is a great spot for Jahmyr Gibbs. It's a great spot for the Lions offense. I mean, we have a 30.5 implied team total. Now, I prefer when they play at home, but the thing is, I'm probably not getting the Jared Goff much, which means I'm probably not getting to the passing attack because I can't see myself one-offing Amon-Ra St. Brown nearly $8,500. I'd rather just play Puka Nacua. Personally, I think I'd rather play JSN as well. So for me, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be my main target. I wouldn't say he's the cash game play at running back, because I do like the discount we give it to Devontae Chan. I think the passing upside is a little bit more. I would say the floor is better with that, more guaranteed than Jahmyr Gibbs. Now the touchdown upside is going to be less just due to the fact that they don't have a 30.5 implied team total. And then as for Washington, I really don't like anybody here. I know Mariota's cheap. I'd rather just fork up the extra $400 for a Jackson Dart. Personally, I don't really trust any of these wide receivers. Terry McLaurin's going to be out, so that is nice for the rest of these guys. Zach Ertz is okay. Sam Laporte at $4,400, nearly 12-point projection. He doesn't look too bad if he gets into the end zone, but I'll be honest, as high scoring as this game is projected to be at 49.5, there's just other games I like on the slate a little bit more. And I almost forgot to show you guys the stack table here, so let's go to the insights part. We're going to sort this by team salary versus implied team total, and we usually look for here as the sweet spot, a cheap team with a higher implied team total, and there's really nobody in there this week. The guys that are closest to toeing the line, which I guess the Patriots are just above the line, New England Patriots there, which I said, don't forget about them. I do think they're in a pretty solid spot, but I don't think they're going to be have overwhelming ownership this week. A couple teams that are straggling, but close enough. Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants, which I do like them quite a bit. I know there's like only a few guys that project well, but I mean, for their price points, they project really well. The rest of the guys don't project well, which are definitely lowering their numbers overall. Baltimore Ravens not quite there, but not quite toeing the line, but they're knocking on the door, asking if they're able to get in. We're not letting them in, but we thought about it at least. Buffalo Bills, a little bit further away. The Detroit Lions completely off the page, and you can't see them, but the Rams are actually all the way to the right. The Bears are behind my big head. Seahawks and the Buccaneers also behind my head there, but I mean, these are basically the teams that people are going to want to get to. It doesn't look like there's a team that's completely underpriced this week for sure. And as promised, we're on the optimizer here to see who is popping as of right now. And of course, these can change by Sunday, so don't get married to them. I have 25% randomness on, just to account for the fact that everyone's going to have different ownership projections. Not going to mess with the max player percent ownership or the sum of that. I am going to require 2 stack minimum, which if you are spending time actually building lineups, set team specific rules. Like, you don't have to double stack with Josh Allen. You honestly don't have to stack at all with Josh Allen. He can score 30 points by himself or just completely spreading it out. You guys get the idea. So just know 2 stack minimum for everybody, because we're not going to take the time to build all of your lineups for you. And I'm going to do a no stack build after that, and we can kind of compare, which those are more so optimals than anything. So let's crunch the 150 here. Let me go down to where we care about. And we will check the exposures coming in. So quarterbacks right now, we're only 40 lineups in, so these are going to change a little bit. I guess we could probably look at the team exposure as it rolls in first, then we'll look at the player exposure. We have Buffalo, Miami coming in a ton. Let's look at the game stacks from over there. Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, they're changing, but New York's popping in, Chicago, New England, basically the teams that we talked about for the ones that have a lot of interest in, but that's a lot of Baltimore. They're actually contending to be the top spot here. I think we got basically our 150 in, so I'm going to start looking at these player exposures here. But it looks like Drake May actually leading the way. Let me get my head out of the way. When we talk about quarterbacks here, Jackson Dart, Josh Allen, a lot of Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield. I'm kind of curious why Marcus Mariota, which I guess he is cheap, so the point per dollar probably doesn't look terrible, but I'll be honest, he's not really on my radar too much. Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, DJ McCarthy, Lamar Jackson, Brissett, Mac Jones. Kind of gets ugly the more we go down. I thought I'd see a lot more Caleb Williams, but like I said, my stuff's kind of like in the Jackson Dart side of things. I don't hate Caleb Williams at all this week. I mean, yeah, I think you could even play him in single entries. Just one of those things where projections like the other guy a little bit better. Looking at running back, Achan, not surprised there. He's pretty much my top running back as of right now, but currently we have DeAndre Swift projected in. If he happens to be out, you would probably see Monangai as the top option. Christian McCaffrey still getting a decent amount of love, but as you can see, it's very spread out after Achan. Rico Dowdle, James Cook, 2 excellent options. Kyron Williams, DeAndre Swift, which we don't know. And like I said, I'm also going to have to try to trim that down a little bit. I think I kind of gave too much love to the RB1 in that situation, which with the new role, I do think kind of gets split a little bit more, especially if he does play. I do think it'll be more of a split. Derrick Henry, ETN just kind of gets ugly. After that, not really guys I have much interest in. A lot of Wan'Dale Robinson, Puka Nacua, Zay Flowers, Khalil Shakur, Darius Slayton with those double stacks with Jackson Dart, JSN, Diggs, St. Brown. Tight end, I think is pretty tough this week, but loved Hunter Henry, which probably coincides with the Drake May love there. Kincaid, Laporta, Andrews. It's kind of tight end is tough this week, in my opinion. I'm getting drawn to that Mark Andrews price tag, but I think it's pretty wide open. And no surprise there, lots of Cleveland Browns. All right, so we're going to run this without, and I assume it'll look a little bit different here. So if we go to the quarterback tab, we got our 150 to run. Jackson Dart plus the 2 studs right below him. So you're either spending up or you're going all the way down. Well, it's not really all the way down with Dart. There's a couple cheaper guys like Brissett and McCarthy. I get it. They're not forcing double stack options with them, which don't look too appealing. They're going to get some more love. Running back really shouldn't change. I mean, that's like the core 4 for me. Etienne, McCaffrey, Dowdle, and Cook. Honestly, I'm not in love with CMC either. So Dowdle, Cook, and Devon Chance. I mean, they're not going to be the only running backs I play, but I'm probably going to build around them. Or Monangai. We don't know. If no DeAndre Swift is a thing, Monangai will probably be at the very top spot. We talked about that. Wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson loves, even without forcing a double stack with Jackson Dart, Zay Flowers. Lots of Chris Moore. Terry McLaurin just got rid out before I get on here, so I have to make sure I didn't do like a funky projection in the system for him. But I mean, I guess I get it in the fact that, in the sense that they're going to be trailing in this game. So maybe, but that does seem a little aggressive. Puka Nacua, Khalil Shakur, JSN, Parker Washington love, which we did not have before. Hunter Henry still dominating the tight end space, which seems a little odd to me. I mean, I like him, but it seems a little much, doesn't it? And then defense, probably, no, it didn't really change much. I mean, the Browns defense getting an overwhelming amount of love, which rightfully so. They will be the chunk defense this week, and we have our lineup cards there, but we're not going to go over them. With that being said, so far for you guys this week, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Scratch it for brand new. If any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. I wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.